Well, next is our discussion of the week. The monthly sales of new four-wheeled vehicles in Indonesia rose quite significantly ahead of the Idul Fitri holidays in mid-April this year, as many people bought new cars to travel to their hometowns during the annual holidays.
Based on data from the Association of Indonesian Automotive Manufacturers Associations, or GAIKINDO, the monthly sales of the new cars increased sharply in March. The wholesales rose by 5.7% in March to 74,724 cars, while retail sales increased by 16.7% to 82,092 units from the previous 70,316 cars during the month. The figure indicates the highest monthly sales recorded for this year. However, cumulatively, sales throughout the first quarter of 2024 suffered a decline due to the lower sales during January and February. The retail sales dropped by 15% in the January-March period to 230,776 cars from 271,423 cars in the same quarters last year. Even so, the decline in sales during the first quarter of 2024 did not affect the competition in the domestic car market. The top best-selling car brands were still dominated by Toyota, which was ranked in the first place, followed by Daihatsu in the second, and other Japanese players Honda, Mitsubishi Motors, and Suzuki in the third, fourth, and fifth places. Unlike conventional cars, sales of electric cars or battery electric vehicles, or BEV, continued to show their upward trend in the first quarter of this year. Based on data released by GAIKINDO, national electric car wholesales, or factories to dealers, were recorded at 5,882 units in January to March 2024, an increase of 228% year-on-year. GAIKINDO Chairman Jongki Sugiarto contributed the sharp growth in the sales of electric cars in the first quarter of 2024 to an increase in new brands and models on the market. Certain electric car models are even able to compete competitively in terms of price with conventional vehicles. The 1% value-added tax, or VAT, incentive for electric cars provided by the government helps increase the sales. However, he hopes that the annual GAIKINDO Indonesia International Auto Show 2024, which will be held at Indonesia Convention Exhibitions, or ICE BSD City Tangerang, will trigger an increase in sales in the second semester. With the increase in sales during the second half, the sales target can be achieved. Meanwhile, in its latest report, Fitch Rating believes car sales in Indonesia in the remainder of 2024 are unlikely to accelerate dramatically, given the policy interest rate hike in April and the increased likelihood that car financing rates will remain high this year as market liquidity tightens gradually. Around 80% of Indonesian car purchases use financing, and sales are sensitive to financing costs. Fitch now expects sales to fall to around 900,000 vehicles in 2024, compared with our earlier expectations that the figure would remain close to the 1 million units sold in 2023. Fitch says that the sluggish car sales also added pressure to local financing and leading companies, and they could turn to other business lines to sustain growth.
Now, speaking of car sales, the car sales in Indonesia in the remainder of 2024 are unlikely to accelerate dramatically, given the policy interest rate hike in April and the increase in car financing rates that will remain high for the rest of this year. Now, here our guest today via Zoom is Bapak Suwandi Wiratno, Chairman of the Indonesian Financing Firms Association, where Pak Suwandi will share the insight on the latest trend in the car financing business amid this sluggish car sales. Good afternoon, Pak Suwandi.
Good afternoon, Mbak Luisa. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Pak Suwandi, thank you so much for sparing your time here on Economic Outlook today. Pak Suwandi, like in the previous year, sales of the new cars have always shown a quite large increase ahead of Idul Fitri holidays as usual. Now, how is the demand for financing for new car purchases ahead of Idul Fitri this year? Can you explain more again?
Well, yeah, but Luisa, as you all know, the demands of financing is always remain high. But the most important things, I think, for finance company, ever since the crisis happens, the COVID happens, we all have to actually be very more careful in terms of selecting a very good quality customers because the noise of collections, the noise of debt collectors everywhere in the current situations. A multi-finance company has to be very careful in terms of approving the accounts. And as you all know that since 2019, we were equipped by OJK that we becomes the member of SLIKO, used to be known by BI checking. With all this facility that we can check the customers' profiles, I think the approval ratio has somehow dropped. We used to actually have has an approval ratio of 60 to 70%. Current situations, because that we are able to check the customer's profile of their payment behaviors on their credit history. The current approval ratios, I think, at the rate of 30 to 40%. Some companies are actually even more strict on the approval ratios. They are actually their approval ratios somewhere around 20 to 30%. That probably costs one of the main reasons caused the drop of the financing ratios as well.
I see. Now, in your opinion, Pak Suwandi, how big is the impact of this sluggish car sales to the auto car financing growth then?
Well, the main reasons I think since last year, 2023, going towards the end of 2023, we felt that the buying power somehow dropped, and also the main reasons also that people are struggling. They are in the surviving modes because basic needs prices also like rice, sugars increase. So I think shifting of prioritizing the basic needs importance to our people as well, and the governments has somehow also explained the main reasons why our basic needs like rice, sugars increase because of this El Nino, and that probably caused the double effect of the whole situations, with the approval ratios are being strict, and also the shifting of where people is actually prioritizing the basic needs. That probably then cause why the car sales drop as well. Not to mention that people also always also say that the month of January and February, people are also probably wait and see to buy new things, new cars as well, make an investments because they're waiting for the elections, the general elections. But after the general elections, we need to also wait that whether the sales can actually back to normal. The month of March, I think you cannot put that as the measurements that is already back to normal, because that's a normal situations during all coming towards the Idul Fitri. People always buys new cars to go back to their own village.
Well, you know what they say, different year, we always have different challenges. Now, last year, the Financial Services Authority have reported that there is a 15% increase in car financing. Now, how is the potential growth for car financing for the year 2024?
Yeah, for car financings, I don't think you can actually compare it apple to apple with the new car sales, because car financings, and especially for our businesses, we have shifted also not to also focusing in financing new cars, but there are some players also focusing in used car financings. Not to, also we have this sort of a new opportunity and businesses to recycle the good customers by offering cash loan to our existing customers who has actually done an excellent payment behaviors. This kind of businesses, I think, has developed in our industry. So that is the one of the main reasons, we're still able to maintain the growth up till March of 2024, somewhere around 12%.
Now, Bank Indonesia has recently increased its interest rates. Pak Suwandi, can you please elaborate to us, explain to us how is this increase in interest rate will impact the car financing business?
Well, the increasing of interest rate that probably Bank Indonesia has somehow need to actually control the monetary situations. It wasn't actually going to impact our existing customers because in our industries and our businesses, when customers actually enter into an agreement, the rate is going to be fixed. So for those people who is already running on their installments will not be adjusted on interest.
I
Only
see.
for new customers, I believe there will be an additional interest somewhere around 25 to 50 basis point. I don't think it will impact for those who can afford to pay the lease terms or the lease payments going forward. But what we need to actually pay an attention towards the increase of the interest rate is again, I think, and how well the government could actually stabilizing the basic needs of the prices, like the main foot of I think is the main important things to stabilizing the prices. Once it is stabilizing, so you can maintain the price and an affordable price. At the end of the day, when a customer has an income, they have to actually then trying to identify which percentage will goes for our basic needs, which percentage will go for an installment. And today's situations, like I mentioned earlier, people are on the surviving mode.
Now, Pak Suwandi, please enlighten us, like how high is the interest rate charged by financing companies for new car purchases at present? And also, how much is the difference compared to banks' car loans?
Well, again, I think for those finance company who is the big players like BCA Finance, Maybank, all these Mandiri Tunas Finance, all those big players are actually offering a very competitive pricings. I think they started with 2.6, 2.7% flat rate up to 4.5% for 5 years financing. And I think that would be even competitive enough to the bank car financings because most of these companies also belong to the banks. So the banks are going to channel their financing towards their finance company. And definitely, I think this interest rate will be different from finance company to the other finance company. Some finance company will focus on new car financing. Some company will then have a combination between new car and used car financing. For those people who are actually financing used car financing, I think the rate is going to be high. So again, I think there are so much opportunity for Indonesian customers who would like to buy cars and go for financings. The rate are still very, very low. And if you can afford to pay, buy a cars and you want to buy through installment financings by having a facility from finance company, do it now. I mean, but again, I think for us as a finance company, we will select a good quality customers because at the end of the day, we do not want to end up with the customers who can't afford their payments because again, I think quality is number one for our industry and our business.
Of course. Now, speaking of car sales, if we can just speak a bit about the electric cars. The sales of electric cars have shown a significant increase lately. Everyone's been talking about it. And even for those who doesn't own an electric car yet, they are planning to get one in the near future. Now, how high is the demand for electric car financing so far?
Yeah, well, the demand is not high, but to be honest, I think I've spoken to the electric cars dealers. They're saying that because electric people who buys an electric cars is like they are actually want to have a first experience driving electric cars, and most of them are actually buying their cars cash. And one of the main reasons why they do not want to go for financings because again, I think finance company also are very careful in terms of approving these electric cars. The main reasons also one of the many of us actually think that financing electric cars, we need to have an ecosystem. So, right now, these insurance companies are actually still calculating what would be the premium rate of the insurance premiums on that, because at the end of the day, it's different from covering the insurance for the conventional cars. But to be honest, I think 80% of those people 80% people are buying cash.
I see. Now, last question here. According to the regulation, if you can just talk a bit about debt collection, the debt collectors are not allowed to forcibly seize vehicles if there is a problem related to loan installment. But why does forced vehicle seizure still occur so often? We still hear it happening.
Well, I'd like to probably clarify the whole issues. In terms of seizing or confiscating those customers who are actually defaulted, and not fulfilling their obligations. According to the law number 42, 1999, or fiduciary law, we are actually able to confiscate the car at any place at any time. What OJK is saying is to forbid us for not doing these executions, for having these regulations that there are certain periods that we can do collections. That only applies for those customers who are actually can respond for summon letters from the finance company. Good customers who are responding, we can sit down and talk and communicate by having a rescheduling, restructuring of their loans. But for those bad customers who will not be protected by regulators, because again, I think bad customers who actually not being cooperative, some of those bad customers actually, when upon the default, they even they even hide the cars. Sometimes they sell the cars underhand. They didn't tell us. I mean, because there is an agreement, in between the financing periods. You can't actually just hand it over to someone else, or probably you understand, you sometimes have a loan to someone, and you just surrender your cars to the other people. You don't tell the other people that the cars is still under financing periods. These kind of customers probably will not be protected. Not probably, it is clearly enough to that the regulators, OJK has mentioned that the regulations for collections periods, times, and everything that is being actually set by OJK only for those good customers.
I
Bad
see.
customers, just do it according what is actually being approved by the law.
All right.
But one most important things, as multi-finance company, as we are the players, we need to also educate our debt collectors. Do it in a polite way. Do it according to the SOP, that there are certain process when you want to execute the cars. You have to carry the certificate fiduciaries. You have to show that you have actually sent summon letters 2 or 3 times to the customers. The customer didn't reply your summon letters. You have to carry the power of attorneys that you are the real debt collectors that being authorized by the company to execute the cars. And lastly, but you need to actually also carry the license, the certificate of, whereby we've been also asked by OJK, every debt collectors need to have a license to actually execute or confiscate the cars or motorcycles.
All right, thank you so much for that clarification, and thank you for your insights, Pak Suwandi Wiratno, Chairman of Indonesian Financing Firms Association, and we'll see you again on our next dialogue. Thank you so much, Pak Suwandi.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.